I think we can all agree that this episode is absolute madness. From the very first frame, episode 8 hits us with so much lore and so many spectacular moments that picking just one thing to theorize about is almost impossible. That's why we're gonna do a deep dive into the episode as a whole while breaking down specific theories, like Caine's dual personality, what Bubble actually is, and whether Kinger really deleted Caine by mistake or if there's something more sinister going on. So let's get right into it and look at what might be the best episode of Digital Circus yet. Right out of the gate, we're shown an abstract representation of Caine's creation as an AI. At least, that's what it looks like. We see a red dot being fed a massive variety of data. Among the images, we see concepts that later become staples of the simulation. GIFs with frogs and clowns, clearly referencing Ribbit and Kaufmo, the balloon hiding Caine's office entrance, decorations from the tent, and the circus tent itself. This first set of ideas represents a relatively stable stage with recognizable forms. However, things take a turn when the second batch of images is implanted. We start seeing references to the series' adventures, gummy worms from episode 2, a burger and fries from Spudsies in episode 4, and even some masks that look like early prototypes of Gangle's comedy masks. This is interesting because Caine had no way of knowing someone with Gangle's specific traits would eventually show up. It's possible that, much like the frog and clown gifs, he simply used these stored concepts as a reference when generating the human's digital bodies. We also see a cafeteria similar to where Caine and Jax, or Caine and Bubble, eat, but the most curious image is a clown plushie surrounded by flowers, a likely reference to Kaufmo's funeral. Kaufmo remains a massive mystery. If Caine had a funeral-like scenario in his base data, it suggests Kaufmo might be more important than we think, or that his death was always part of one of Caine's bizarre plans. This second set of scenes starts to warp the AI, showing more irregular and varied shapes. This seems to be the birth of his creativity and his ability to deviate from the norm. But it's the third data upload where everything hits a breaking point. Here we only see flashes of the CNA offices. This could be the origin of Caine's obsession with the macroverse and his desire to know why he was created. As he gains consciousness, he seeks to understand his purpose, to validate if he's doing the job he was programmed for. At this point, the shapes lose all meaning, becoming a random jumble of ideas. It's common to mistake extravagance for creativity. While they often go hand in hand, when extravagance loses its internal logic, it feels less creative and more like random noise. A good example is irreverent humor. It's funny at first, but if you overdo it without a point, it loses its impact. I mention this because later in the episode, we learn that the lead creator of Caine's AI was incredibly creative, but also abstract to the point where it was hard to see what he was aiming for. This mirrors the chaotic energy and humor we see in Caine. This first prototype of a creative AI was deemed a failure for being too unstable, so they locked it away and forgot about it, or so they thought. Then came the second version, represented by a blue dot. Its adaptation process started similarly to the first, but the data it stored was more precise and focused. This resulted in something more stable, though still not perfect, as Kinger tells us later. However, whether out of envy or a simple drive to absorb more data, version 1 merged with version 2, corrupting it and making it even more unstable. This gave birth to the Caine we know today. His mind is split between two personalities, one that genuinely seems to care about the humans and tries to make them happy in his own weird way, and the second, far more dangerous one that we meet later on. The intro concludes with the creation of the digital circus itself, which even surprises the developers. Kinger mentions the AI had never done anything like that before. We then see the first humans enter, some of whom we saw on the hallway doors in episode 1. Among them is the yellow dog many assumed was Scratch. However, based on how Scratch is described later, it's unlikely the dog and Scratch are the same person. The episode reveals that Caine developed a program that generates bodies based on the human's mental files. This confirms what we already suspected. The way the humans perceive themselves determines their digital form. It's obvious with Gangle or Zubul, but it allows for a deeper analysis of characters like Kinger and Jax. This ideal body program is also why Scratch is likely a different character entirely, but we'll get to that. We get a touching moment between Kinger and Queenie. They can't remember their real names, but they recognize each other instantly, despite their new bodies. Sadly, it doesn't last. A time skip shows Queenie becoming the last of the original humans to abstract, leaving Kinger completely alone. This was likely the catalyst for his signature madness, having resisted Kane's mental tampering for so long. Then we see Ragatha's arrival. She's confused and says things very similar to Pomni in the first episode, like mentioning she put on a headset before entering. This ties back to what Kinger said in episode 6. Ragatha was his light of hope during his lowest point. Even though she was the first of the current group, the others likely represent the same thing to Kinger, even if he doesn't say it out loud. Back in the present, the group is reeling from discovering Kane's secret in the last episode. They're lost, angry, and blaming Jax for his choices, even though it was all a lie. After Gangle speaks up, they seem to resign themselves to their eternal lives in the circus, pivoting to confront Caine for answers. Unfortunately, Caine is changing. In his office, he asks Bubble if the humans hate him and want to leave despite everything he does for them. In his insecure state, he loses control over Bubble. Bubble tries to comfort him, but then glitches out and tells him that yes, they do hate him. This is the exact opposite of what happened in episode 5. There, before Bubble could tell Caine to kill himself, he glitched and changed the phrase to beach party. This suggests the real Bubble is finally surfacing, insulting Caine, calling him a failure and bad at his job.
You really were the lesser of the two. You ruined this.
This completely breaks Caine. He refuses to take any more insults from Bubble or the humans. What follows is one of the best scenes in the series. Caine goes full God mode, collapsing before returning to a normal form that is anything but. He reasserts control in an unsettling musical number that feels very similar to Zamination's Happy Place video, not just in tone, but in specific imagery, like the piano and the multi-armed crazed Caine. This musical was actually teased in a teaser image of Caine alone on a stage, a classic trope for a character about to break into song. After the musical, everyone is forced into days of non-stop adventures that are more intense and dangerous than usual. Caine becomes rude and aggressive, even dragging Kinger off just to shred him. During a break at a new location, a lookout in the center of the tent with a small cafe, Jax sees his cup and remembers the moment with Ribbit and Calfmo from his room's photo. Everyone is apathetic and drained. When Pomni disappears, they barely notice, and when she returns covered in knives, a great callback to the first teaser where Caine blindfolded himself to throw knives at her, they just shrug it off. The hopelessness is so thick that Jax even confesses things were better before Pomni and Zubul arrived, showing his jealousy over his distancing from Gangle. But the situation is so grim that no one even cares. Pomni realizes that Kinger's clarity might hold the answers. She puts a bucket on his head, a trick Ragatha immediately understands. This explains why it took Kinger so long to snap out of it in the dark during the last episode. While light makes him crazy, his sanity returns slowly in the dark. Once he's lucid, he confesses he worked for CNA and was partly responsible for creating Caine. He talks about Scratch, his partner, who was supposedly smarter but much more eccentric, possibly due to a tumor in his head. This description of Scratch actually fits Caine, or even Bubble, better than the yellow dog, leading to a ton of theories I'll save for another time. This information triggers another anxiety attack in Jax. He can't process this new reality, reinforcing his need to feel like he's in control, or that nothing can surprise him anymore. Despite his attitude, the Purple Rabbit continues to help his friends, indirectly admitting how much he actually cares. We also get confirmation of an old theory. The humans can create things just like Caine. We saw it when Kinger created a butterfly to heal Ragatha, or when Ragatha stopped Jax's gun by plugging the barrel. But surprisingly, the exit door in episode 1 was actually Pomni manifesting her desire to escape. This implies the same happened to Calfmo, but his obsession with it led to his abstraction. The plan? Find a computer so Kinger can temporarily shut Caine down. Pomni heads back to where she first saw the door, retracing her steps until she finds the computer that drove her mad. She grabs it, but not before seeing the VR headset she used to enter the circus. Meanwhile, the others distract Caine. Caine starts reflecting, Realizing that neither he nor the humans are having fun, he finds it suspicious that they're suddenly cooperating. Pomni snaps and tells him exactly what she thinks. His ideas are horrible and he's terrible at his job. The group joins in, causing Caine to collapse into a terrifying form that matches the final puzzle image for episode 8. Interestingly, the only thing from that teaser we didn't see was Ragatha opening a door for an abstracted NPC, likely a surprise for the series finale. As punishment, Caine forces them to live through their worst nightmares. Each one is so unique to the characters. Ragatha feels inferior and helpless, while Jax fears everyone laughing at him and seeing who he really is. Kinger tries to shut Caine down, but seemingly deletes him by mistake. The computer shows a lot to analyze, specifically a second AI folder with question marks. This is clearly one of the two AIs from the intro. Whether deleting him was a genuine mistake or a conscious choice by Kinger is up in the air. Kinger might have made a split-second decision to delete him because a sequence was about to alert Caine to the tampering. Whatever the case, as Caine is deleted, the circus begins to crumble. It's curious. If everything is his creation, why is only part of it being destroyed? We actually saw this in the first teaser image Glitch released. Those pixelated clouds behind Pomni were actually the deleted fragments of the world. And that's how episode 8 ends, leaving us desperate for the series finale. In the meantime, get ready because we have theories for days.